Good girl, Coco. Hey, guys.
She's like, I'm just going to slip right in here.
So we are live, but it might be delayed. Hey, guys. Lynn with National Cat Groomers here. I'm just testing out to make sure that the live is up. And I'm pretty sure I can hear it in the other room. Wonderful. So I'm just going to give everyone a couple minutes to join the live stream. So thank you so much for joining me for today's live stream. I'm going to be doing tips on solo handling with cats. And Gracie just gave me the thumbs up, which means that my audio is working. And Gracie is going to be managing the chat box for me. And she's also going to be sharing the stream in other groups and things, which I think she forgot to be doing. So we're just going to give everybody a couple minutes. Pop in the comments and let me know where you're joining me from. So this live stream is because I was supposed to have 3 cat grooming classes at Atlanta Pet Fair this weekend, but unfortunately, the Atlanta Pet Fair got closed down a day early, so I wasn't able to give my classes. So I know that a lot of people had messaged me about cat grooming classes and being able to watch and join me in my lectures. And so I thought, what a good way to kind of practice good social distancing than by having a online class for about 20 to 30 minutes. So we're going to give everybody a chance to join us, and we will start right at 3 o'clock. And just remember to pop in the comments where you're joining me from, and we'll get started in a couple minutes. Awesome. It looks like lots of people are joining me. And so we're going to get started in just another minute. And thank you again so much. And we're going to be talking about tips for Grooming Cats Solo. My name is Lynn Paolillo, and I'm a certifier and instructor with the National Cat Groomers Institute. I'm also a certified feline master groomer with them, and I own a cat-only grooming and boarding business in New Jersey called Catnaps Cattery. So this is going to be a little portion of my solo handling for cat grooming lecture. And then I'm also going to switch over to a live demo, and I'll also be able to answer some of your questions. So if you have a question about solo handling or grooming cats, make sure to add it in the comments, and Gracie is going to be kind of letting me know those comments as we go. And then we'll do kind of a Q&A all the way at the end. So let me switch over to my lecture stuff. And so we're not going to do the whole lecture. I just have a couple slides that I want to touch on so we can kind of skip through some of this. So like I mentioned, my name is Lynn Paolillo. I'm a CFMG certifier and instructor for the National Cat Groomers, and I have my own Catnaps Cattery in central New Jersey. And we don't need housekeeping. We don't need all this. We're going to come back to that. So this is kind of if you join my whole class. But I do want to talk about the kind of 4 what I consider the hats that you wear when you groom cats and how to get better at grooming cats solo. So let me go back to my notes because, of course, I'm on the wrong page for that. There we go. Okay. So when I talk about different hats, it means different roles that you'll need to fill when it comes to becoming a better cat groomer in terms of working by yourself. I work pretty much entirely by myself. Every once in a very blue moon, I might have my husband step in and just hold a leg for me, but he doesn't work with me during the week. He has his own full-time job, so that's really only on Saturdays. So if I have a particularly difficult cat coming in that I'm not familiar with, I might just have him in the background acting as a spotter. But everybody else gets done solo. I do lots of aggressive cats, lots of shy cats, lots of rescue cats, previously outdoor cats, purebred cats, you name it, I do it. So I don't always like when people kind of give me comments like, oh, well, you don't do the cats that I do. Trust me, I do, I have, and I've worked with them. So I want to help you get better and feel more confident when it comes to working with cats solo, because I don't like to rely on another employee to do a service, especially if something happens to that employee or if they quit, or if they get sick, or if they break their ankle or something like that, and you are going to cancel 8 cats in a day and not know when to reschedule them? No. So I do everything solo. So the first kind of role that I want to talk about is being a detective. This is where you'll need to learn everything that you can to prepare yourself before the cat even walks into your salon. So specifically, this is about breeds, feline temperaments, body language, symptoms of health conditions, things like that. You're going to be using this information to refer back to as you are watching and interpreting everything that happens with the cat. So we have to expand our knowledge and help our experience to interpret what's going on with the cat. So that way we can make better decisions for each cat. So I mentioned temperaments and behavior, breed information, and then health information. So why do you need to learn about temperaments and behavior? Well, I think that's honestly very self-explanatory, especially as a groomer. We know that working with dogs, you need to understand dog body language. Well, unfortunately, most of that knowledge is just not useful for cats. They just speak a different language. It's not that they're unpredictable or that they're crazy or that they're all just out to get us. It's that they speak a different language when it comes to dog body language versus cat body language. So you need to learn more about those things in order to understand what they're trying to communicate with us. The next thing is breeds. Why do you need to learn about cat breeds? Well, obviously, if you had a client with a Bichon, call and ask about Bichon grooming. If you answered, well, I've never actually groomed one, but I'm sure it can't be that bad. I do lots of dogs. They wouldn't be very trusting to leave their Bichon with you because you don't really know that much about it. Cat owners, especially cat owners of purebred cats, are really looking for an expert. I see a lot of purebred cats, way more than you would even think are out there, but a huge portion of my clientele is purebred cats: Persians, Norwegian forest cats, ragdolls, Siberians, Siamese, Burmese, Singapuras, Sphinx, all types of that. What is she doing? Sorry, our demo kitty is getting impatient. Instead of just treating all cats the same, there are slight... Sorry, guys, we're having some technical issues over here. Gracie is causing a ruckus. But anyway, so, we all look at different dog breeds as far as the pattern of their haircut. And obviously that's going to be different when it comes to cats, but we can still look at dog breeds and cat breeds and look at personality traits, things that are consistent among those cats as far as coat textures, what the goal is for them to look like, all of those kind of things can be found in studying more about each breed, because they each have their own unique look. They have their own grooming needs, personalities, and then behaviors. So overall, being familiar with all these breeds is going to give you a leg up on your competition. They're going to give you a leg up when talking to the clients because, again, they want to bring their cat to an expert. And it's going to give you a leg up when actually working with the cat. You can customize that cat's grooming experience because you will be well equipped to handle their needs and behaviors. Oh, I should go back. One more about health. Health is actually a fairly broad topic, and it's going to work in tandem with breed knowledge because certain breeds in cats can be predisposed to specific conditions and illnesses. So you'll need to understand common health problems that are seen in cats so that you can make adjustments for the appointment. You can either refer them to the vet or just know which issues are going to affect your grooming salon, whether they're transmittable, whether you need specific cleaners, whether they're going to be prone to additional illnesses or conditions. But also health has to do with understanding and being able to recognize the symptoms of illness and injury, because sometimes the owner doesn't know or they're just not telling you everything. And sometimes it can really affect the grooming process. For example, there is a cat, her name is Miss Kitty, and we used to do Miss Kitty when I worked in South Carolina, and she was hit by a car a number of years ago. And even though she's healed and she lives a very normal life, she is very sensitive to handling around her hips. So we forego sanitary trims and we adjust techniques during her groom in order to keep her very comfortable. So that's just one example of how you can adapt to different things. But a lot of times there are health issues that can have detrimental consequences during the grooming process. Things like HCM, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or a heart murmur or heart disease can cause sudden death. And so obviously that can put you at a huge disadvantage if you don't know enough about those things and how to recognize the signs of stress in order to know when to stop the groom, when to turn it away, and how to make better recommendations for the clients so that their cats can have the best and most successful grooming processes. So the second role or hat that I recommend that you take on as far as being a better solo cat groomer is to kind of learn to be a psychic. You're going to have to learn to predict reactions and to prevent escalation of the cat. That's a really huge thing that I think will help you in your grooming techniques, is preventing escalation, not just what to do when the cat is already escalated, because honestly, that's when I see a lot of groomers are like, nope, this cat is crazy, I'm just going to stop. But then I get calls. I get a call because I'm a cat grooming expert, and now the cat is already riled up. They're half shaved, they look like a mess, and they're super stressed out when so many things could have been done to prevent the cat escalating to that point. And then they could have been done successfully by their first groomer instead of having to call some additional groomers. So in order to be a psychic, a lot of times less is more in most instances, and really having a game plan and thinking several steps ahead is going to help you make quick but confident decisions. You kind of need to interpret information very quickly so that you can make the best choices for the cat in the moment. And so being a psychic involves predicting what's happened. It's like being a chess player. You can't just look at the next move, but you have to look at the next several moves, because of what you do is going to have long-term effects on this cat in the groom, whether it is this groom or whether it is future grooms. So having a game plan certainly helps. I would also recommend being thoughtful with any type of clipper swipes or tools or movements or products, which are going to save you time without losing out on the finished product. You need to move quickly and thoughtfully, but it doesn't mean that I send out choppy looking grooms. All of my clipper all my clipper work is very thoughtful. I take consideration into the flatness of the cat's skin, the amount of pressure that I need to use with my clippers, and the direction of the hair growth and the line placement. So I am making less clipper swipes overall while still getting a really nice, clean finish. Finally, when I understand how a cat reacts and what their temperament and body language is telling me, this is kind of going to tie into that being a detective. But once you've gained all that knowledge, a huge variety of handling positions, you're going to have to know when to choose what in what position. Not everything will work out for each and every cat. So you have to kind of have a large library in your head of information, of experience, and then of different handling techniques so you can choose the best for each cat. Not that every cat is going to get the exact same thing or go in the same order. I tend to do what I call a priority list. So every time I have a cat come in, a new cat, whether they're matted or elderly or they've got a health issue, whatever it is, I'm very clear when I discuss it with my clients that I work on a priority system. My top priority is to get their cat comfortable. That means removing the matting, getting them clean, removing stud tail, kind of the things that are going to get them comfortable right away. The next step is to look at things that will keep them comfortable and is more preventative maintenance. So that's where it's getting them totally clean and dry, doing a de-shed or continuing a haircut. If I have to do a modified line cut, or if I need to do a full line cut or just a wide belly shave or what's going on, that's the next step down. And then finally, the last thing that I consider as far as services is vanity services. So this is toe tuft trimming, face trim, cleaning up the rough, anything that I deem not a necessity in the first groom gets bumped down on the totem pole, especially for first appointments. Now, I also tell clients that just because we do a specific groom in a certain way in the first appointment doesn't mean that that's going to be the groom every single time. Sometimes we can work up to a specific service. Sometimes the cat is just never going to get certain services. So if I have an aggressive short-haired cat who comes in who's just hairy but isn't matted, well, this cat might not be a line cut candidate. I can always try to work them up to full body shaving by getting them in for regular bath and blow dries and introducing sanitary and then belly shaving, and then seeing if we can get them to a point where they're more accepting of shaving. But that might not be the case. It may take several visits or it may not happen at all. So those are things that I have to discuss with the owner, but I want to make sure that I'm relieving the problem initially, but then looking more towards future suggestions for my owner based on the cat's reaction. So all of those things are involved with being a quote unquote psychic in cat grooming. The third role is to be a stuntman. And basically what I mean about being a stuntman is that if you want to learn to get better, you have to learn to get uncomfortable, because when you are basing everything that you're doing on having an assistant or having someone else do a portion of the work for you, they become a crutch. We tend to rely on them too much, and then you're not going to get better that way. If you're relying on an assistant for the majority of your cat grooms, you are not going to force yourself to get better. So you have to step back and start figuring out, okay, what is it that I can start doing on my own? Why do I really need this assistant? What are they there for? And then start to get creative, start to try different techniques, different positions, start in small sections and use an assistant less and less while you step back from doing those things. And honestly, it is really all about going outside of your comfort zone. So I do a lot of lap grooming. I never thought I would be a lap groomer. And I have people tell me all the time, oh no, it's too uncomfortable. I can't do it that way. Trust me, when you really push yourself outside of your comfort zone and master lap grooming, oh my God, a world of possibilities will open for you as far as being a solo cat groomer. My lap, my legs, my arms, my forearm, my wrists, my hip, my side, everything is another extension of myself. I don't have to train another cat groomer. I just have to train my legs to be part of my cat grooming body. And that is much easier. And I don't have to worry about paying them separately. So it works out really well to just train your body to be that additional employee that you would need instead of relying on somebody else. So being a stuntman means getting uncomfortable, trying some stuff out, get some training with one of the trainers or certifiers with National Cat Groomers, because when you have that other person there, what I do with my students is that I will literally move their body around. I'll push and pull, I'll move their arm, I'll make sure that they're nice and snug. We do it all in person, which is going to be so much different than just showing you the techniques, which I will certainly do, but I guarantee you your handling techniques will improve so much more if you combine that with getting training in person with somebody who knows more, who has a controlled and safe environment for you to learn in. They're choosing the right cats, they're trying out the right techniques, they know these animals so that you can get some hands-on practice. So the last kind of role that I want to talk about is being a contortionist. So this is going to play off of what I was saying with being a stuntman. And this is really about learning to use your body to its fullest potential. So a huge difference in grooming cats is how we position them with grooming and how much more we can and should use our own body than we do. Dog grooming kind of is on a table at arm's length and they just kind of stand there, whereas very few cats do that. And even if I do have cats that stand on the table, I'm not grooming them like dogs. I'm working around them and working with them instead of just saying, nope, you have to stay still because that's how I'm used to grooming. You need to get out of that mindset and move more into the mindset of what can I do to keep this cat comfortable, prevent them from escalating, and make it so that I can see what I'm doing? Those are the two things that I think about. And sometimes that means that I hold them, I have to train additional muscles. I have to move my body in ways that I wasn't used to. I have to go to the gym. I have to take some yoga classes. You know, it will all improve overall, which will mean you'll be a more successful and honestly a more profitable groomer. So the first thing about being a contortionist is more than just a table. So when in a couple minutes, I'm going to do my demonstrations where you can see that I'm going to do some table grooming, some table demonstrations, but also I do so much more in my lap, laying them on my lap, sitting them on my lap, rolling them over, rolling in a towel, using different handling techniques. And it's so much more than just what you would do with a dog standing on a table. And so you have to keep that in mind. Again, that flexibility and strength where I mentioned going to the gym, taking some new classes, you are going to be sore when you try doing these things that are new and that your body isn't used to doing them. There are muscles that your arms are not used to moving in those ways and working in those ways. And the way you get better is to help yourself by doing exercises, pushing yourself slightly outside of your comfort zone, so that you can improve, especially your flexibility and strength. Now, with large cats, like my 30-pound Maine Coon, giants, I will need a lot more strength, lifting and holding and rolling them over. But on the flip side, when I have skinny, elderly cats or little tiny Persians, I'm not using brute force. I'm using flexibility and dexterity so I can move around them and move my hands and move my arms. So I'm working with them instead of just holding them down and forcing them into position. That is certainly not a way to make a cat work better for you and coordinate with them. My goal as a cat groomer is to have a positive long-term relationship with this cat in terms of grooming, because at some point, every cat is going to get elderly. They're absolutely going to have an increase in grooming needs. And so me holding them down and forcing them into a lion cut where they scream and thrash and I have to have 4 people hold them down is not going to help this cat now. It's not going to help this cat a month from now. And it's not going to help this cat 10 years from now. So that is not how I groom, and it's not how I recommend you guys groom. And so it really is about improving your own body's position. The last tip I would have about being a contortionist is learn to do a few things with your opposite or less dominant hand. Trust me, when I'm doing a sanitary trim and I've got the cat in the perfect position and they're relaxed and they're just laying there, but I can't actually see the other side of the sanitary trim, if you could just do that one inner leg with the other hand, it will make your life 1,000 times easier instead of having to roll them over and move them into position and do all this other stuff. Learn to do a couple things with your opposite hand. If you're a dog groomer, honestly, you could probably start learning clipper swipes right now when you have big, hairy dogs just standing on the table getting a 7-blade. Put your clipper in your other hand and take some swipes just to get that feel, to build up your muscles. And it will help you so much to start doing a few things with your other hand. Okay, so before I go over onto my demos, I think that's not up to date. There we go. So again, about being a detective, we're going to be talking about assessment, reading and interpreting body language. You're going to be gathering intel. As a psychic, we obviously don't want to get mauled. And so we need to find out what works for the cat, what works for you, and putting those things together so that you can predict what the cat's reaction is going to be so you can make better decisions earlier in the groom to prevent escalation. Stuntman stunts, again, we're going to talk about managing the danger zones. You're going to have to be quick and nimble, and we're going to be limiting and maximizing our positions, which I'll show you in some demonstrations. And finally, as far as the contortionist, this is transitioning between moves. We're going to be utilizing our body and getting creative. So I'm hoping I will be able to switch over. All right, ready? Gracie, we're going to switch over to our live stream. Oh, I should probably turn it on. So give me just a sec. Everybody take a sip of their water. All right, that is on. We have to make sure this is on. Sorry, I had to set up some crazy stuff. Trust me, we've been at this for hours to try and, I think we're working. All right, Gracie, you're on. Oh, we need Coco too. Hey guys. So we're gonna do the demonstration. I just have to grab Coco, and Gracie is going to be keeping an eye on the live stream and on the comments. So if you have specific questions, make sure to pop them in the comments, because we're gonna do a couple minutes of demonstration, and then I'm all yours for Q&A. And it's Miss Coco is our lovely volunteer, and she's purring. She's such a sweet girl. Do you want to just double check this leg? Just make sure that that's working out. Do I have to sit?
You're good. You're good.
Okay. So I've got Miss Coco. So I'm going to show you a couple things on the grooming table. Also, I just wanted to mention, you can kind of see here, that one of the promos that we're going to do for Atlanta Pet Fair is you get $200 off the complete cat groomer training syllabus. With the code 200 off, you can go to nationalcatgroomers.com/syllabus, and you can get all of your training materials, which is what we recommend as your next step to be a better cat groomer, especially if you want to groom solo. Becoming a CFMG is going to give you a huge boost to start to get in that direction. You're going to see lots and lots of demonstrations, video tutorials. You've got books, DVDs, online classes, and a whole network of students who are going through exactly what you're going through. So it's a great thing to check out, and you'll get $200 off if you use this code, which will be available for the next few days as kind of a present for attending my live stream, because you didn't get a chance to attend Atlanta Pet Fair with me. So Miss Coco on the table. So I always want to assess every cat that comes into my salon. Obviously I know Coco, that's why we're kind of up close and personal with Miss Coco Bean, because she's one of my friends. She's my friend, and she's purring and happy. But so every new cat, I obviously don't know how they're gonna be. So I always do an assessment before the owner leaves. While they're in their carrier, what I wanna do is see what their behavior is in the carrier. Are they hissing at me? Are they interested? Are they hiding in the back? Are they hiding under something? But I also need to see, are they matted anywhere? Do they have skin ear infections, irritations? What's going on? So I always do a physical assessment before the owners leave. I wanna feel down the back, under the tail, under the belly, armpits, and then under the chest. So she's feeling good so far. She has eaten a lot of wet food this morning, so her face is a little crunchy, but she's a good girl. And so if I was gonna be grooming her start to finish, then I would make sure to focus on cleaning up her face area and really getting her sanitary trim nice and clean, because that's pretty nasty too. So once I have assessed a cat, I wanna talk about the different types of muzzles that I use on cats. And it pretty much is limited to what's on this table right here and myself. So I really like the little green e-collars. This to me is a great intro muzzle for a new cat or for a young cat. So it is not gonna give me 100% protection, because I can still get bit with it on. But what I'll do is I will introduce it to them slowly and pop it on. And this will give me an opportunity to trim their nails, and I'm protected if they reach down, if I'm feeling around their nails, oh, you're fine. To do their back nails, to reach underneath, so if they turn around, I'll have some, I know, she's already complaining. But this gives me a little bit of protection. So if I have a new cat and I want to test out how they do and I'm not really sure, I might start with this e-collar and just to start doing nails. But if they start growling or hissing or getting really tense, before they escalate too much, I will go ahead and take it off, and I will upgrade to my full air muzzle. This is how I groom aggressive cats who are trying to eat me without getting all mauled or bit or anything like that. So what I love about this is that I can still see them from the front of the air muzzle. I don't like the muzzles that cover their face, because I need to see them. I need to see how they're reacting and make sure they're breathing appropriately, that everything's fine. So that's why I love my air muzzle. It gives me 100% protection while still being able to see them. The trick is making sure it's on snug enough and I'm preventing them from reaching up and grabbing it. Don't you go anywhere. So there's two ways to put the air muzzle on. The first is usually the way that I use. Smoosh them down. I'll take a little bit of a scruff to just tilt their head back so I can make sure that the air muzzle gets underneath the chin. Tilt your head back, and I'll just slip it on, and I'll I'll get one side, move her hair out, and get the other side, and I only want to be able to get the tip of one finger in between the back of the neck and the top of the air muzzle. If I can get more than that, if I can get several fingers, it's too loose. So I want to make sure it's nice and snug without preventing them from breathing normally. So I can see what's going on, she's nice and she's not stressed out. So if I have a cat that I put the air muzzle on, slowly I introduce it before they've escalated, and they are still reacting just fine, then I know that the air muzzle is not causing the stress. So when I continue, if they do escalate, it's not the air muzzle, it is something else that has happened in that moment. So the other way to put the air muzzle on is if I need both hands. So she kind of let me put it on willy-nilly. So another way is to have a firmer scruff. Again, I'm going to tilt it on, but this time I'm not letting go of my scruff, and I'm using one finger to get the first side, and then I'm going to let go, make sure it's nice and snug, and then I'll adjust the first side. So that way I'm not letting go of the scruff, I'm using that one finger to get the first one on, adjust it real quick, now we're good to go. Now, anytime a cat reaches up and tries to grab it, I have to unhook the feet. So if she starts, I know, she doesn't normally grab it, so this is like making her do stuff. So she reaches up, then I just unhook her feet, and I might use my forearm to prevent these feet from reaching up and grabbing it. If she's trying to bunny kick me, although she's just kind of laying there. But again, I can use my forearm to prevent her from doing those things. So this is just helping me to manage the danger zones. So I don't want to get bit, and I don't want to get scratched up. So as soon as I get the e-collar, the air muzzle on, my next priority is going to be trimming the nails, because I don't want to get all scratched up with untrimmed nails. And so I'll get the air muzzle on, and I'll go ahead and I'll start my nail trims, I'll get everything done. If I have a cat who is particularly aggressive, and I have a few minutes in the beginning of the groom, I might require this cat to get soft paws, to get nail caps. That way I've got a few minutes at the beginning of the groom, trim the nail, pop the soft paws on, the owners get something out of it, it encourages them to come back on a regular basis, and it drastically limits how much scratching and damage they can do to me. So if I have a cat who doesn't let me trim the nails on the table, or they're really starting to escalate once I get the air muzzle on, I will go ahead and move them into my lap. So what I tend to do is I do a lot with the cats just sitting comfortably in my lap, and their back legs are just tucked between my legs. Hi. So we're supporting the body weight, but now imagine if she had the air muzzle on, I only have 2 feet to worry about. So I could do one foot, and then I can do the other foot. If I have a young cat or an angry cat, to do the back feet, I'll just sit them, and that way I don't have to pull legs out to the side, make them uncomfortable. I can just clip, 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 clip. She is something today. So much. And then we'll just do the other feet. I know you need a bath. Yes, you do. So we'll sit them this way. Now, if they're giving me a harder time to do those back legs, I can tuck them underneath my arm. I've got a nice snug grip right by the shoulders. And again, I'll do these feet. If they're trying to bat at me or kick at me, I just hold both of them in one hand and just manipulate each toe to trim them. And then I might use my wrist to hold the right foot out of the way to trim the other feet. And then I can put my nail trimmers down, and I can move on to something else like the sanitary trim, trimming the tushy, the belly, whatever it is that I need to do right here. So like I mentioned, I do a lot on my lap. So if I have cats in an air muzzle or wrapped in a towel, I'll either do it sitting on my lap, tail tucked between my leg, back end tucked between my legs so I can see belly, armpits. You got some mats. Gracie, she's napping. She's got little mats in her armpit. I know, you need a bath, Mama. We'll go on this side. So now obviously if I thought she was gonna bite me, I would put an air muzzle on, I put an e-collar on before we have gotten to this rigmarole type of thing. So now that I can see the whole front half, so I can see armpits, I can see chest, I can just move them up. Just, I'm sorry, I'm just making these noises. Just start seeing the chest. That thing. Then I can start moving the back legs, stretching them out. If I want to do these little tucked up areas like the tuck up, so this area right here is a very thin flap of skin. Instead of shaving directly up or down, because I'll nick it, I'll do above it on both sides so I feel it, so I can shave all this if let's say I was doing a line cut. Then I'm gonna let this leg relax and I'm gonna push it back into the skin. So now that whole area is flattened out. Same thing with the armpit. If I stretch it out, I can do this side, I can do this side, but I don't wanna go up or down this little flap of skin. So once that's all I've got left, I'll just let the leg relax, push it back in, and now this skin is now right here on the outside of the shoulder. So all those elderly skinny cats, I still shave them. It's just helping the legs relax and moving the skin to where it's a nice flat area. So either the shoulder, the thigh, the middle of the belly, the stomach, all of the skin can move around. So I might clear the hair out first, but I won't use full pressure until I know for sure that I'm not gonna catch the skin. So really easy to do that part. And honestly, I tend to do armpits, chest, sanitary, belly as the first things that if I'm doing shaving. So if I'm doing a line cut, I will start with my sanitary area, I'll work up the belly, I'll do my armpits, and that way I've got all of the difficult areas done before I move on to the easy areas of the back, the thighs, the shoulders, the chest, things like that are so much easier. So I might as well get all the tricky stuff done first before their turkey timer has gotten close to going pop. So when I see cats, I get a lot of cats from my local cat grooming, competitors, and they tend to come in with their back shaved and then they're all matted on the inside because the groomers couldn't get that far. Whereas to me, I wouldn't want to send out a cat that looked like I did a reverse mohawk on it, so I always start with the underside. So it's the more challenging areas to get them done, taken care of, all that kind of stuff. So every time that I move a cat around, so if I'm gonna move her from side to side, if I'm gonna switch from table to lap or lap to table, I wanna make sure that I've done everything I could in that position before I move them. So I'm using a lot less positions, I am moving the cat a lot less, and I'm preventing a lot more escalation. So as much as I can do in an area, I will do it. So let's say I've got her this way, and we're doing armpit, chest, belly. What I will also do is I'll go ahead and do around the front leg. I'll do down the side before I roll her around. So I don't have to go back to those areas. I've done everything I could in one spot. The last thing I want to talk about before we tackle some Q&A, so maybe if you have specific questions, make sure to pop them in the comments. You're fine. So if they start wiggling, you just put them back in the position, calm, confident, and use a little bit more pressure. That's it. You don't have to hold them down and rope them around and all this crazy stuff. Even my crazy cats that are trying to maul me, most of them respond very well to calm, confident maneuvers as few times as possible. Put your head back there. You're fine. I'll do one more demo and then I want to kind of answer a quick question about when to know when to turn a cat away before I take general questions. So the last thing I want to talk about is larger cats. So I mentioned I do a lot more on my lap. If I have a large cat, so obviously Coco's a little tiny thing. Look how tiny she is. You're little. You're just a little thing. So if I have a large cat and they're longer than my lap, what I will do is I'll prop my legs up on something to extend my lap even further. That way it gives me kind of an additional couple inches, which will make the cat feel more secure instead of their butt hanging off of my knees. The other thing is you can wrap them partially in a towel so that the towel is part of your handling techniques. You're fine. You want to get wrapped in? You want to get wrapped in a towel? Let's wrap you in a towel. I know. Oh my gosh. So chatty. Oh, I'm the worst, Miss Lynn. You're fine. So I'm going to take my towel out. I'll put her in the center. Smoosh it down with those legs. And I'm going to get nice and snug for the front. So they're like a little caterpillar. What? You're laughing at?
She's so cute.
I know, she's so funny. But now I have two less legs to worry about. So if I had a larger cat who was trying to bat at me, I can easily do the back half, pull the back leg out. I can have something bigger to hold on. So I've got more of the towel. If I needed to put her in an air muzzle or e-collar, I totally could, but she's nice and snug in the front, and I can start to come in from the back to start going up the sides and the legs. I tend to start a lot of my drying back here on the butts. I know, we don't like on it. I know. So while I will sometimes use my cats as demonstration or practice, I don't like to overdo it. So Coco is a cat that doesn't need all of that handling, so I don't do it. I don't scruff every cat. I don't wrap every cat in a towel. I don't use the air muzzle on every cat because not all of them need it. And a lot of times as they improve with good grooming schedules, with regular consistent handling and services every single time, a lot of times they need less and less in order for me to, I know, hi, you're not mad at me, right? You're not mad forever. They need less and less in order for them to have a successful groom. So, so I wanted to, what was that thing I wanted to talk about? Oh, when to know when to say no. So, she said no. She said no right now. So one of the things I wanted to talk about that I see a lot is cats that are going home half groomed, or that groomers are saying like, oh, this cat was so crazy for me in the middle of the groom, and they couldn't finish. I honestly could probably not tell you a time that I can think of where I finished a groom half done in the middle. Because I'm much better at reading and predicting body language, and so the handful of cats that I've groomed in the past, I don't know, a couple years now, that I've had my own business, that I know I could not finish, I know within the first 1 to 2 minutes of the cat being out of the carrier. Probably like 30 seconds. I've actually watched so I videotape my grooms so that I can see like if something doesn't go the way I expected it to, or if I wanted to just save it, then I go back and I watch my grooms. I videotape all my grooms. And one of the things that I noticed one time is that I had this cat that came in that I ended up deciding not to groom that day. He was a short-haired, previously outdoor cat, and mom really wanted nail caps, but he absolutely would not let me do anything as soon as we got him out of the carrier. And so it was probably, I want to say it was like 28 seconds between the time that he got out of the carrier and I made the decision that he was not getting groomed that day. Could I have forced it? Possibly. I would say probably I could have forced it, but it wouldn't have helped me, it wouldn't have helped the cat, and it wouldn't have helped solve it wouldn't have given the owner any solutions because I wouldn't have been able to repeat it without basically traumatizing the cat, and it's just not worth it. So in those instances, when I know right away, it's usually based on how are they reacting to being handled in general. And one of the things that I learned to start asking, and actually this is, I'm going to credit Deborah Hansen, who owns, what is the name of her business? It's like Kitty Enterprises, DeborahHansen.com. She's a great cat groomer. She's in California. She, one of the questions I started asking when someone calls and they have a cat, sorry, Coco's like rolling in the sunshine. She's like obviously very traumatized about what just happened. One of the things that Deborah Hansen asks, and that now I started asking when I have a new client who calls, is that I ask, are there multiple adults that live in the household, and can every adult pick up and carry the cat comfortably? I'm not saying they have to love it, but some cats are only about one person. Or some cats have family members that nobody can touch the cat, but they're not going to tell you that. They're going to leave that little detail out until you try to get the cat out and he goes bananas and they're like, oh, well, I thought you were a professional. No. So one of the questions I found that gives me a lot of information is, can every adult in the household pick up the cat safely? Like pick them up and just, be able to move them from point A to point B. I'm not saying like snuggle and get up on their faces, but pick up point A to point B. That will give me a lot of information, and I think that's a great question to ask. And so if I have a cat who comes out and they were previously an outdoor cat, or they cannot be handled by very many people in the home or not at all, then I don't have very high expectations for that groom, and I might recommend something like seeing their vet for an oral sedative like gabapentin or amitriptyline or something like that. I don't like to necessarily recommend specific medications because I'm not a vet, I'm a groomer. Instead, I have relationships with the vets near me, And so that if I send one of my clients back to their vet for something like gabapentin, the vets usually know what I'm looking for and what I need, and so they're able to work with the client to find the best medication and dosage. And sometimes different medications affect different cats differently. So sometimes that means we have to try more than once. And sometimes that means that I have to make sure that my owners have realistic expectations of what is going to happen during the groom. And so I'll know very quickly how the cat is reacting to being touched and being handled, and if they're already riled up just walking into my salon, I'm usually a pretty good judge at how successful the groom will be. So if I start with removing mats and shaving the underside after I've trimmed the nails and put the air muzzle on, usually at that point I'm able to finish whatever I started. Although I might make recommendations to clients down the road and say, no, we're not going to do line cuts ever again, or we can only do line cuts if they come in on something, and instead I'll offer them regular bath and blow dries. So the majority of my clients tend to be bath and blow dry clients now. So we've got a couple questions, right? Okay, so I'm gonna, first question that I actually get asked this question a lot, so I wanna make sure that I talked about it, is how do you get certified as a cat groomer? So the main thing is to really go through the syllabus, go through your syllabus materials. So all that stuff that I talked about, being a detective, being a contortionist, being a stuntman, being a psychic, all of that starts with a great background of information. And I credit my background of information to the National Cat Groomers. That's why I work for them now, is because I was just like you. I was a cat groomer who didn't really know very much, or actually I was more of a dog groomer who thought I knew how to groom cats, but I didn't. Until I went through their program. And honestly, it is hands down the best information that you can get on cat grooming. And so you definitely want to start with something like the syllabus so that you can start learning at home, watching the videos, going through the online classes, participating in our student group to get the help that you need before you ever come to hands-on training. So it's kind of, we recommend going through the syllabus, then you get hands-on training. I do hands-on training at my salon in New Jersey. Gracie does training here in Greenville, South Carolina. We have a whole bunch of certifiers and trainers. You just go to nationalcatgroomers.com/approved-trainers, and that will give you our full list of approved trainers and certifiers right there who offer hands-on training. And basically you can either travel to their salon and work in their environment where they have lined up the cats for you, or you can host them at your salon and you can line up the cats that you maybe need improvement on, or the cats that you've been grooming. And so then you need hands-on training, and then you go to one of the certifiers or you host a certifier in order to take your practical exams. So there are 9 exams total towards certification, 4 written, 5 practical. You take those, bada bang, bada boom, you become a certified feline master groomer, like myself. So one of the questions we have is, what if the cat flings off the air muzzle? So I talked about this initially when I mentioned how to put, what is this? I'm guessing this is Gracie's and you haven't trimmed them yet. This is like extra. An octopus. This is long distance cat grooming. I'll get mine. This is how they normally look. So as I mentioned with putting it on, the real key is making sure that it's snug. You want it to be fairly snug. It is shaped in a way that goes around the cat's neck. So there's this dip here and there's this curve here. So you only want to be able to get the tip of one finger between the back of the air muzzle and the back of the cat's neck, because you want it to be nice and snug, but you don't want it to be so snug that they can't breathe. So nice and snug, and then again, do not let them grab the air muzzle. If you have a cat who starts to grab the air muzzle, put your tools down, reposition the cat so that they can't do that. It's very simple. I tend to sit next to my table or sit next to my grooming cart so that I can set my tools down. So I set my clipper down, I set my comb down, whatever it is, I reposition the cat to make sure that we are good to go, and then pick up my tool. So nice and snug, and don't let them grab onto it. Fairly straightforward. Yeah, I don't really have a scratched up air muzzle. One question we have is about like bunny kickers. So if the cat is trying to bunny kick, what do you do? So Mainly for those cats, I will do a lot on my lap, but if I have them on the table, oh man, Coco, round 2. Oh, she's like, oh crap. Meow. Okay, so usually when I have them in my lap, you know, like I was showing you just now, I do a lot more where I'm controlling this. So if I sit them or lay them down, I will put my hand across their lower abdomen so that they can't reach up and kick at me. Or I might hold one leg, or I might push it with my wrist to hold the other leg. It really is kind of using a lower section of your arm to prevent them from reaching up. So if they're on the table, what I'll do is I'll try to roll them on their side, and I'll use my elbow right above their hip so that way they can't reach up and kick at me or swat at me. A lot of times it's just kind of leaning or putting a little bit of pressure, rolling them side to side. I'll put their foot under, over. I'll put my arm in between their rear legs. I'm trying to have you guys see. So if I was shaving a cat and I could do this way, so I've tucked my arm right in between their legs, and I'm not leaning on them, I'm just kind of closing the gap over their foot so that they can't really reach up and do anything. And then I'll go real quick and do what I need to do, and then I'll kind of let them get back to a comfort position. Good girl. Oh, good girl. Do I use sleeves when grooming cats? I'm assuming you mean like sleeves, like protector sleeves. I don't. I don't think there's any shame in using them. I think that some people feel more comfortable with it. I personally don't like them. They hinder my movements. So as I've been showing you a lot of these positions, I use this to this a lot. I use my elbow a lot, I use my forearm, my wrist, I use these a lot. And those gloves tend to really hinder the flexibility and dexterity that I have in these sections of my body, and I don't like it. I don't like how it feels. I don't like how stiff it can be, whether or not they're really thick. I mean, some of those gloves are like uber thick. Some of them are just itchy, and I don't really need them very often. Like I said, the majority of my clients, I get them on bath and blow dry schedules, and I'm not dealing with angry, aggressive, you know, matted bunny kickers anymore because I've gotten the majority of them onto better schedules. So I don't find it useful to wear additional protective materials when it's only like 0.01% of cats that I need. So if every once in a blue moon I get, you know, a good scratch or something like that, to me it's not the end of the world because it's not happening all the time, and the pros do not outweigh the cons for me. So there are other people who use them. I think it's fine if you use them, if you feel comfortable, but I would encourage you to use tools that help you instead of relying on them to not have to make better decisions. So if you make better decisions on what you're doing with that cat and the choices that you make for grooming them, as far as like long-term schedules, what services they need, things like that, you should have a lot less bunny kickers too. Bunny kickers, swatters, biters, things like that. You should be able to predict what they're doing much more down the road, and your clientele will fill up more with cats that you don't need those things for, just like mine. So, any other questions? I think we're good to go. Thank you guys so much again for joining me. I miss seeing everybody at Atlanta Pet Fair. Thank you again to WPA, Chris Berry, and the whole team at Atlanta Pet Fair. I know you guys always do your best to put on a great show. I'm so sad that things went down this way. I hope everybody stays safe with all of the virus warnings. And again, if you're gonna be home or self-isolated, it is a great time for you to study cat grooming. So again, go to nationalcatgroomers.com/syllabus. You'll get all the information that you'll need to become a fantastic cat groomer. If you have questions for me, please feel free to leave them below in the comments, or you can also email me at lynn@nationalcatgroomers.com, and I'll see you guys at the next show. Bye. I have to turn it back over here, so. Oh, okay.